Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to inform their consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. Doing a series of spotlights on remarkable experts across the country and even in your town. Joining me on this segment is Ryan Wilson. He's the founder of the law offices of T. Ryan Wilson. Ryan, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark.
Ryan, so you practice elder law, and I know that that is a broad topic. So please tell us a little bit about the types of clients that you specialize in helping and your specialties in that spectrum of elder law.
Well, elder law, like you said, does sort of affect a broad spectrum of clients. Many of the people that we're dealing with are people who either themselves or their loved ones are at a point in their lives where they need long-term care. So we're helping them manage their care needs. And in many cases, what we're helping them do is manage what's called spend down to qualifying for Medicaid. As you may know or may not, that Medicaid is, if not the largest, certainly one of the largest payers for long-term care needs of elderly population in the country. Another factor of being an elder law attorney is helping people do their legacy plans, much like an estate planning attorney, only with a little bit more focus on the needs of the individual as they age, not just the needs of passing on a legacy after they've passed. And then I think that the third area where we focus is what to do with a family member who has, for whatever reason, couldn't do it, just didn't get around to it, or it happened at an inconvenient time, has had a life incident like a stroke or uh, some other, health crisis, that they no longer can make financial decisions for themselves, and they need somebody to do that. And in those situations, we end up frequently having to pursue what's called a guardianship because they're unable to do it for whatever reason. So it's kind of a broad spectrum.
So, to your point, as you mentioned, this is obviously a point in the life cycle, which is a pretty sensitive subject for a lot of folks. So, that's why I really want to bring awareness to this topic. When folks seek you out for your help? Who are they, and are they the sibling, the children? And what are some of the biggest challenges or the most common questions that you get when they first reach out to you?
Well, frequently it's an adult child of, mom or dad, or maybe, it's a niece or nephew of an adult older aunt or uncle, somebody like that who doesn't have children of their own to be able to help them manage. And their loved one is in severe decline. And, the family has gotten to the point where they know that they can't help that loved one live in the home anymore. It's not safe for them for whatever reason. Either they are bedridden or um, may have cognitive decline. It may be a combination of issues where they just need additional help. They need literally round the clock kind of nursing type services, more than room and board, as it said. And then those are the number one. I think sometimes we get a crisis situation where a spouse is taking care of their spouse, and so maybe one spouse is a little older than the other one. Frequently it's the man who's older than the woman, but that's not always the case. And sometimes it's the younger spouse who may have health issues for whatever reason. It may be an unexpected situation where they get afflicted um, by all sorts of things. Like I mentioned stroke earlier, that is frequently the number one thing where it's more debilitating. and it can be unexpected. It can happen to someone in their as early as their 40s. I have a current client now who, they did everything right financially, and in a subsequent marriage, you know, but they had some issues and some health issues, and the spouse who had, saved a lot of money, unfortunately, had a stroke, and at a relatively young age, early 60s, and had to go into a nursing care facility. And we're managing the finances, had to do a lot of work to find out, where all of his finances were to start with, and then um, kind of help them manage the transfer of those assets so that he could continue to receive care.
Being that sensitive, part of the life cycle, is there really a proper way to prepare for this? How do you guide, or what do you recommend for a family to do to be prepared in this case, so they're not so caught off guard by a stroke or something that forces this?
It, I think there are a couple of things that one can do. The first thing is to get, I think first, last, and first on the list is get your powers of attorney in place so that someone can take care of you uh, without having to involve the legal process if you were to be incapacitated for whatever reason. The second one The second one is to get your powers of attorney in place for whatever reason if you are incapacitated. And the third one is to get your powers of attorney in place if for whatever reason you are incapacitated. You need to talk to an elder law attorney about this, someone who is versed in being able to qualify for any benefits and would know specific powers that a power of attorney needs to have in order to avoid a guardianship type of proceeding. You also need to have a good conversation with your family and to have a loved one that you trust. It's hard to do if you don't have that particular loved one. I remember talking some time ago to a older lady from a different state who said she had 5 children, but she only trusted 2, and that you got to pick them right. Unfortunately, we have clients sometimes who come in and they want one thing when one child is around them, but then the other child gets to them and talks to them for a while, and then they want something completely different. And so it's always good to have a good conversation with a family.
Do you find that your work is part therapy in ways?
There is definitely some therapeutic aspects of it. I mean, especially when we're dealing with emotion too. And there's a lot of emotion that comes with it. First off, the emotion of dealing with an older loved one who can't do it anymore. Say for instance, dad was very independent and never needed help on anything and wouldn't ask for help if his life depended on it. Well, now all of a sudden dad's in a position where he can't do it anymore. And maybe you made a promise to dad that you'd never put him in a nursing home, but you get to a point sometimes, depending on other health conditions, maybe dad had to go into a hospital for a long period of time, and dad is no longer able to get out of bed for himself. And, you know, maybe dad doesn't weigh that much, but at over 100, slightly, even if it's slightly over 100 pounds, 100 pounds of human being who can't help you get up and get themselves up and get to the bathroom is a lot to put on a family. And it's hard to do even if you have help. So it becomes even harder if you don't have help. And it can be very taxing, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I don't see any families who are at the point of needing to have their loved one in a skilled nursing facility level of care who isn't also dealing with wrenching emotional issues.
Ryan, what inspired you to get into elder law to begin with? How did you get started?
Well, I had sort of a circuitous route to it. I worked for a number of years, about a decade, for an organization that advocates on behalf of older people. Did a lot of work for them over the years, and it came time for my next phase of life, and decided that this was an area about which I had passion and could continue to serve people and knew a good deal about, and could go in this direction and help people, making the world a little bit better place for each client.
Before I ask you my last question, is there anything that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is important to share as it relates to elder law?
Um, I just think, I think we covered it, but I think just making sure that you have a good conversation with your family. Um, it's hard to have those conversations, but it's really important to do so. And then consult with an attorney like me.
And to speaking to that, how can folks that are listening in, and I know you're in the Silver Springs, Maryland area, if they want to get your help, connect with you, and learn more, how do they find you?
You can always go to my website. It's ryanwilsonlaw.com. Email is trw@ryanwilsonlaw.com. I'll answer it myself. You'll get the real person. And if you wanted to call our offices, it's 240-638-2721.
Ryan, this has been terrific. I really appreciate your insights and taking the time to share with my audience today. I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Mark, thank you so much for having me.
Ryan Wilson, founder of the law offices of T. Ryan Wilson. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to inform their consumers, build their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining us.